Like the rest of you, we're just trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. I'm RJ,
I'm Khalil.
and welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. I'm a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm a licensed social worker.
Every day we find ourselves discussing many different topics, ranging from trending news to the state of our society as a whole. You name it, we probably talked about it. After many heated debates, we decided to expand and share our conversations and give you our perspective from both a therapist and a social worker's point of view, and hopefully get your input. If this is your first time here, we want to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe, as well as participate in the conversations. So today we are going to talk about generational curses. That is something that is very prevalent, I have noticed, in today's society, where we are not preparing the generations that are coming after us for what is to come, what life has in store for them. And the way I was taught as a child was that those who fail to plan to fail. And I've seen, being a therapist, I have seen my gambit of different things that people come into my office or I've come in contact with, depending on whatever healthcare setting I've been in. And a lot of the things that are the root cause of turmoil and chaos and strife in their life has been something that has been passed on to them from their mom or their dad or somebody else.
Right.
And it's just trouble. It's troubling because the same way that you can pass on hair color, height, weight, skin color, skin tone, you can pass on just things that just negatively impact somebody in their life, and they don't even really understand why. What are your thoughts on that, Khalil?
Well, definitely, I think that people always look at nature versus nurture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to look at biological. There's biological predispositions. You know what I mean? When we sit there, and not saying that that's the case for everybody, because you can take twins, right, and separate them at birth. And yeah, they will probably be different when you have that different type of upbringing, the nurturing, right? But you can't escape some things that are in that generational that's passed down. You know what I mean? Just like stress. People always forget about the biological predisposition for people who were born in a stressful situation. They've done studies. One of my favorite psychologists or psychiatrists actually was, and he's still out here doing a lot of speaking engagements, Gabor Mate. And he talked about being born during the time Hitler was, persecuting the Jews, right? And he was in Hungary. And he was talking about, like his mom being so stressed out that when he was born, he was crying all the time. And so his mom calls the doctor and was like, man, my child won't stop crying. She said, well, all the Jewish kids are crying right now because the stress that they're getting from their biological mother. They were feeling it in the womb. Because remember, he was persecuting everybody. So you got to duck, you got to hide, you got to live with other people, that type of environmental stress. So just imagine for people who are related to the slaves who came across on a slave ship, right? Yeah. And being forced into slavery, being whipped, bound, chained, being raped and tortured, right? And imagine what's being passed down. Yeah. Right. It's in that gene pool, right? So people always forget about that. And I say, man, things can definitely be passed down, especially when we talk about addiction. You're predisposed, not saying you're going to become an addict, right? Because if you don't never pick up a joint, you'll never pick up a beer, then how you going to become an addict, right? But if you have that predisposition, just like my dad was addicted to all sorts of stuff. I didn't live with him since 4. But I found myself addicted to a lot of different things. Where did I get that from? You know what I'm saying? So people have to remember how serious it is if you're not trying to break it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue, is breaking it.
Yeah, because the thing about it though is like what a lot of people don't realize is, we all, our life is comprised of choices. A lot of choices are pre-made for you because things have become normalized in your life. So what a lot of people don't understand is the choices that you make can lead to curses. Curses lead to chains, and chains create a cycle that just doesn't stop even once you die.
Right.
So when you're doing maladaptive things such as, using drugs, using substances, or doing other things like not
gambling,
gambling, or even in psychology where they call it self-actualizing. Mm-hmm. You make those certain behaviors normal for people that are around you. I like to call it sphere of influence. The thing, right. And the way I explain it is that everyone has a bubble that surrounds them. It's an invisible bubble. That's arms. When you stretch your arms out, there's a bubble. So when you come near somebody, your bubble overlaps their bubble.
Right.
And when your bubble overlaps their bubble, things that you say and do can impact them, and things that they say and do can impact you. So just imagine, as a parent, you're raising your child. And so when you're raising your child and you never really accomplish anything in your life,
right?
Guess what? It normalizes that behavior of not accomplishing things.
Right.
When you don't finish school, guess what? How can you then turn around and expect your child to finish school? Because that's all I've ever seen is my mom or my dad underachieve. When, like me and my sister were talking about the show Teen Mom and 16 and Pregnant. I've watched the show since it first came out. I kind of stopped watching it after a while because I started just, when you watch the reunion special and you see the adults not be adults in the situation in regards to these children have created children.
Right.
So most, children are not mentally and emotionally capable of raising a child because you're still a child yourself.
Exactly.
You haven't even finished developing, growing yourself. So how are you going to then pause and then turn around and raise a child yourself? It's almost impossible without supervision from an actual adult.
It is impossible. That's the reason why grandparents are always raising kids.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
And so when you're watching these shows, I was like, where are the adults in these situations? Where are their parents at?
Right.
But when you meet the parents are just as messed up as they are. Right. I remember one of the girls is on there now. Her mom and her sister were all living together, and the mom was involved in as much of the relationship as the daughter was. And I'm like, ma'am, at some point in time, you have to recognize your child. Children got to be over here. You got to be over here. Right. Now, granted, you want to be there to provide your child guidance, but the guidance should have been before your child was out there at 14, 15, or 16, getting pregnant and creating another life. The guidance after that fact, when you are co-signing some of the foolishness that she's doing, or even where some of the kids, some of the young adults that are on there, they're the most stable out of their entire family. Like one girl, her mom is an addict, her child's father is an addict, so she's just in constant chaos. And more power to her in the fact that she's trying to, turn things around for her and her daughter. But when you have no example of what right looks like, how are you going
to model that? Right.
How are you going to model that for somebody that's coming after you?
Right.
And the best way that I can equate it as a parent is, I'm into, superheroes, comics, anime, manga, all of that stuff. If you can't tell by the shirts that I wear, for those of you who are watching, I am. So the best way that
as a superhero, we're gonna play that. We're gonna show that one day. People need to see me as who I truly am. The superhero. All
right, we're gonna do that. So the best way I can equate it is if you watch the Black Panther movie. So in the beginning of the movie, when T'Challa is going through the whole spirit realm thing, where he goes and meets his father T'Chaka, and so he tells T'Chaka, "I'm not ready," and T'Chaka says, "Yes, you are." He said, "A parent who has failed to prepare their child for them being dead has failed to prepare them, and I have not failed you." Right. And so for a lot of people, they're stumbling and bumbling through life, not understanding why they're struggling because they were already set up for failure because of the fact that they were not prepared for life as a whole.
Didn't do their role. Yeah, you didn't play their role.
But again, parents can't parent you when they've never seen what right looks like.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so,
that's the issue that you see with people who have teenage mothers who then in turn are raising kids that have children in their teens. And I've seen it. I've actually seen that in a household with the young lady I was friends with. And in that, it perpetuated the same thing. And then it went on in a cycle. Their whole family had children at 15 and 16. It
creates a cycle because it becomes normalized. It's no different than if you grow up seeing someone commit acts of violence. You don't think it's anything wrong with that.
Right. And that's what people do. Yeah. Where do you think people get that? When I dealt with the little prison kids, when I had to deal with adolescents that were going in and out of juvie, their parents were in and out of prison. Where do you think they learned these behaviors from?
It's all I know. It's no different than, like in our previous episodes, we talked about racism. No different than that. You learn that. That's taught to you. You don't come in this world knowing how to lie. You don't come into this world knowing how to hate, knowing how to cheat, knowing how to not be successful. Those things you see. Those things are taught to you. Having a healthy, conducive, fruitful, relationship with anybody. Those are things that you see. That's why it's imperative that you are always mindful of who's watching you, because by you being dysfunctional, you teach other people how to be dysfunctional. And again, you start people off in life at a deficit. Life is already hard enough as it is if we were all on an equal playing field.
Right.
Just imagine coming into life and starting off and, my mom's struggling, so I think that it's okay to struggle.
Mom's on drugs, dad absent from the household.
So you think that it's okay.
Uncle in and out of prison.
And so, like, for a lot of people, they don't think that what I'm doing and what I'm saying is going to impact anybody other than myself. And for some people, it's not until they're shown the reflection of themselves in the mirror that they get themselves together. Because I remember when Love and Hip Hop Atlanta first came out, and what is her name? Erica brought that up to Scrappy. She was like, Amani is going to grow up seeing you disrespect me.
Right.
So what type of guy do you think that she is going to be with? And you could see that it hit him at that point because he loves his kids so much that when he heard her say that, you could see it in his mind. Like you could see it and start to process it. Like, damn, she right. Like, I wouldn't want someone to do my child like this. So I got to kind of get myself together if I expect my child to have better than me. Right. And that should be the goal for every parent, to give better, to make sure that my child has better than I've had. Because again, it starts with us as parents. Like because you're the thing that I tell people all the time, the time and energy you don't put into your kids, somebody else or something else will. Right. To fill in those gaps. So it's
from the neighborhood with a message that's probably comes from a lot of misinformation, and they'll give that to your child. And we think that that's okay because we got misinformation from someone else that wasn't the person who was supposed to be providing us with that knowledge. You know what I mean? We've had clients. I remember having clients where I was so surprised that these people had children. I mean, I had to kind of like, what? You really have to kind of, gauge the situation right. Should I even say something? Because I'm thinking to myself, like, DHR should know about this.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't feel as if they could raise kids. You know what I mean?
Most definitely. I had a client one time. I had a client one time where her and the mom, they're going at it. We're sitting down and we're discussing things, and they start going at it. And I couldn't imagine speaking to my parents the way she was speaking to her mom. Right. Like she was talking to her mom like they were friends, like they were peers. And so I was like, time out. I said, let me ask y'all a question. You guys hang out together, don't you? And the mom looked at me and she's like, yeah. I was like, you guys go shopping together, don't you? And she said, yeah. I said, you guys go clubbing and partying together too, don't you? And she was like, yeah. She's like, how you know that? I said, because I said, I can tell by your interaction, your dynamic and your interactions with each other. That she doesn't view you as an authority figure, as a parent. She views you as on the same level as her, as a peer. And so when mom starts talking and starts, well, I got a daughter that's this age and that's, 3 years older than her. I started doing the math in my head. I'm just like, so you had to have been 14, 15 when you had your first child. Right. So you never, it was like she was on pause mentally. She was still trying to live out her teenage years. And I mean, because the thing about it though is like, you can't always tell how old someone is by looking at them.
Right.
You really can't. And so this lady, she looked fairly young. Like I'm in my, about to be mid-30s. So the lady looked like she was in her mid-30s. And when she said how old she was, I'm like, hold on. I started doing the math. I'm like, hold on, wait a second. For you to have children this age and you're only in your mid-30s, and this was a few years ago, you're in your mid-30s. You started having kids at a very early age.
Right.
And so you mentally and emotionally weren't ready for what comes with raising children. So because you weren't mentally and emotionally ready for what comes with raising children, you don't know how to teach, because, the patient that I was taking care of, she had a kid. So how does she model? What behavior does she model? She models what she sees, which is which is maladaptive and not appropriate for raising a child and preparing that child. And so again, it just becomes another link in the chain. And it becomes one of those things where nowadays there's a pill, there's an injection, there's some sort of treatment for everything that we go through. To where people do not really have to address the core root of what the problem is. Like if you want to be skinny, you don't have to go lift weights or go work out, or eat better or get on a nutrition plan. You can go get for you now. You can go take a shot. You can go get some liposuction. You can go get a gastric bypass. You can go get a sleeve. There's so many different things that you can do to lose weight other than address the core root of the issue of why are you overweight? No different than
why are you binge eating, right? Why are you eating unhealthy? What is the situation? Usually it's overeating for stress.
Because normally there's a root cause of why you are doing whatever you're doing. No different than, like you have some people that come in and I'm depressed. And instead of addressing why the person is depressed. Finding that, digging and unpacking everything.
All right. I'm going to give you that antidepressant, bro.
Yeah.
I got
you. I'm gonna give you a medication. And so for me, like I said before, we have a lot of things that have to be unpacked and have to be figured out, because what we're doing is we're passing that on to the next generation. And so we're ill equipping them for what life has in store for them, because there's not always everything that a person is going to deal with or is going to face is not going to be something that you're going to be able to take a pill or take a shot or go through a procedure to deal with. Some things you're going to have to navigate through. You're going to have to rely back on, things that you saw, things that you experienced, but when you've only ever experienced bullshit,
one way of living,
one way of living, which is the struggle, which is the hardship, you're going to think that it's hopeless and that there's no point in continuing.
Well, we talked about this before. Living in crisis mode, people are accustomed to living in a crisis.
But that's not normal.
That's not normal. But that's normal to them to live in a crisis, meaning I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. I'm always clinically depressed. I have issues with my child's father. I have issues with my child's mother. I'm fighting with this person at least once a week. Well, whoever's in the household with me, whether mom, dad, whoever you're staying with, cousin, auntie, uncle. I'm consistently trying to hide my money because I have a family member that's an addict. I've seen all that as a social worker, right? So that person, in their mind, they're only processing in crisis mode. When you're in crisis mode, meaning you can't reason and you can't think logically, you are not in the logic or reasoning part of your mind. You're in the emotional mind all the time, the time. And you're moving off of instinct. And sometimes people can survive because that's survival mode, right? But usually you do need to have some rational thinking in order to make good decisions for the long run. You can make some good short-term decisions. I've been in crisis where I'm living with this person. I got to get out. I paid some money for a hotel for a few nights, and I couch surfed on the next night. I've been there in my 20s. I get it. But those weren't long-term ideas that I could use that were sustainable.
All they were short-term fixes into a long-term problem.
Right, I'm broke. I'm gonna get some food stamps real quick and hit that off for a week. You know, that doesn't solve the problem.
But you know, the thing is, like you know, you and I were talking about this earlier. You know how some people start to normalize the chaos that's around them, and just and make it seem like that's just okay, and it's not. We're not. You know, we are not animals. And what I mean by animals is when you watch the National Geographic Channel, as you know, and I've said this in previous episodes, I'm a huge animal fan. You know, I love animals. If I wasn't allergic to everything outside, I would have been a veterinarian. So things like horses, giraffes, gazelles, wildebeest, zebras, when they hit the ground out of their mom, guess what? They got to be up and ready to run in an hour. And the reason that is so because there's something looking to try to run down on you. Within an hour, some predator is looking to try to eat you. So they're trying to make a snack off you. They're trying to make a meal off you. They trying to get their fix off of you. So within an hour, you got to be up and running. You know, we are not meant to be just surviving through life. That's not what life is. There's so much to experience in life as far as culture, music, people, that you miss out on that because again, you're poorly prepared. When you're in school and you poorly prepare for a test, what happens? You fail it, right?
You fail it. That's it.
So you will get a straight F on that test unless you cheat it. And life is the same way. Life is a whole bunch of tests. If you pass this test, you get some. You move on to the next level. You fail this test, you're gonna stay at the same point, or you're gonna regress. So when you fail to prepare the next generation of people that are coming after you, you're setting them up to fail the test that is called life. You know, because again,
the same thing you go through and you watch them go through it. That's what's crazy to me is when I saw people who had teenage children. I had a lady. I met her through a woman I used to work for. She was probably, she couldn't have been more than 28 or 30 at the max, 28 or 30. And her child was like 13, 14 years old. She had her young. And at the time I was young, I probably was 20 years old or something like that, 19 or 20. And her child had liked one of my friends. He probably was 17, 18, something like that. And I said to her, they shouldn't really be dating because I met her. And I said, it don't make no sense. This is me. I'm probably 19. I don't even think I'm 20. I might have been 20, right? I don't have a lot of sense, but I had enough sense to tell this lady that little girl shouldn't be dating. I don't care if she's 14, 15 or not, right? She shouldn't be dating my friend, right?
Yeah.
I said, damn, she's pretty young. She said, well, they can go out and hang out. And in my mind, because I'm not thinking right either. You got to think, I'm a young child. What type of mother is this? She's setting that child up for failure. And I'm 19. I'm thinking that my friend probably ended up getting her knocked up at 14, 15.
Yeah, because as
in my mind.
Because as a as you get older, and I've always had that. I've had that radar as well. Like this situation don't seem right.
It don't seem right. So and that's what I'm saying. So what do they have in common? Absolutely nothing. Because he's a grown man, she's a child. So as a grown man, and what do you have in common with a child? Especially one of the opposite sex.
So,
exactly.
I wouldn't even put my child or let my friend be in a situation for a situation to occur. So we're not even doing it.
Well, no, I took him.
Yeah.
I took him. I was like, man, we don't need to holler at her, man. I said, you need to let that little girl do what she don't even need to be hanging
out with you. I mean, I had a client one time where, for the life of me, she was like the adult in the entire household. Like when we first, were providing services to her. Her and her family were living in Section 8 housing.
Right.
So, we, through, the work of the team, we were able to get her, benefits, Social Security benefits, get her insurance and everything else like that. So then we get a letter. Well, she brings us a letter stating that they were being evicted due to fraud. I'm like, wait, what? Time out. Hold on. Wait a second. So contacted, the housing authority. They sent us the manifest of everyone living in the house and the income everyone had coming in and X, Y, and Z. Now, I know for a fact when she first started getting income, because I have family members who live in Section 8 housing and, through the housing authority and everything. I know how the process works. So we reached out to the housing authority and let them know, hey, she's bringing in this amount of money. What do we need to do?
Yeah, it's through Social Security. We got a ledger.
Exactly. So, long story short, they were, prior to her getting Social Security, they weren't having to pay anything. Now that she's got money coming in, there was an expectation that rent would have to be paid.
You gotta pay something, baby.
Mom's reaction was, she's the breadwinner. She should be paying. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm just like, wait, what? Like, her mom.
She needs to be paying. Even though
she needs to be paying. She's the breadwinner. I mean, and I was like, wait, what? Say that again? And she's like, she's the breadwinner. She should be paying. And I'm like, ma'am, it's not her responsibility. And the patient, God bless her, because I mean, like for her mind it was never like in sitting down and getting to know her. She was a very, she's a very, just, beautiful soul in the regards to the fact that it was never about her. It was always about taking care of her family. Anything she did was geared towards taking care of family. I want to be able to get a job because I want to be able to make sure my people are straight. And it was respectable and commendable, but like I had to explain to her, you can't work harder than everyone else, but in her mind, because again, her mom didn't work. She thought, it was her responsibility to take care, because it was 8 people living in there. It's her responsibility to take care of all 8 of them.
Wait, I'm like, come again. So there were 7 other people besides her, and she was the only check that was coming in the building. So
the reason that there was fraud.
You can't have that many people in the building. I'm about to tell you, HUD ain't going for that anyway, unless they're all your biological children.
The reason that there was fraud was because of the fact that I think somebody had income and it wasn't reported. So that's where the whole issue came about. But in trying to explain to her, it's not your responsibility to keep this household afloat. So we end up having to move her into her own place because of the fact that it was causing friction between her and her mother. Because mom wanted her to pay the whole thing. And I'm like, we're not doing that. I asked the lady, how much is the rent? 1/8 of that we will pay. That's what we'll pay, because she's one of 8 people living in there. We will pay 1/8 of that. So then, we move her in her own place. For me, I'm very observant. I start watching stuff. So when I go over there, I notice there's more than just her shoes over there. I notice that it's more than just her clothes over there. And slowly and steadily, I start seeing her family spend more and more time over there. So long story short, they end up moving into her studio apartment. So again,
notice you said it's a studio apartment.
Yeah.
You can't even have more than 2 people in a studio. You can't breathe with 3 people.
So I figured that this was going to happen from the very beginning. So when we moved her in, I went and spoke to, the leasing office, what are your rules? Because I knew that this was going to become a problem, in regards to, moved all these people in here and you're going to wind up, a lot of apartment complexes don't play that. They will put you out. They will evict you, due to unauthorized tenants. And so that's what ended up happening was, instead of, getting her stuff together, her mom was relying on her to have her stuff together. And so you caused problems for your child because you didn't have your stuff together. Because then she ends up she ended up getting evicted from her place. Now she's got an eviction on her record because you didn't have your stuff together. And to me, I've seen it happen in other instances, not necessarily that verbatim case, but in other instances where people choose to make choices. And again, like I said, those choices turn into curses.
Using their children's name on credit cards, putting stuff in their name, social security cards, cars, on 17, 16-year-olds' names. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Live with it with somebody who did that. That to me, right there, my dad doing a checking account in my name. You know what I'm saying? And writing bad checks. When you see people do stuff like that, you are setting people up for failure, especially if you're not going to pay you putting the cable bill in your child's name. Well, you need to make sure you pay that bill and you can't default on it because you already messed their credit up.
Yep. And so it's things like that people don't understand in regards to the things that you do as the generation coming before the generations coming after you. You can set them up for success because you see people who have generational wealth where they create wealth for themselves and they pass that on to their ancestors that come after them, their descendants. So you see that happen. So, and you see what happens to that where you have actors where it's like a whole family thing where mom was an actor, dad was an actor, grandchild was an actor, or and different things like that.
Sheen and Emilio Estevez and all that. Yeah.
So it does happen where people set each other up for success. But more often than not, we inherit the sins of our fathers, the sins of our mothers, because again, they were ill prepared because they inherited the sins of their fathers and their mothers, and so on and so forth. And like I said, these chains and these curses don't come off just because you go into the ground. They don't. So at some point in time, we have to break those chains and those cycles that we see are maladaptive and destructive and chaotic and say enough is enough. Right. And that's why it's imperative that you because your family is not always people that you share blood with.
Right.
Your family can be people that you picked up along the way.
Right.
And so it's imperative that you surround yourself with people who are either going the direction that you're going or have already reached the level that you're trying to reach. And the reason for that is because iron sharpens iron and steel sharpens steel. And diamonds cut diamonds. So if I'm trying to be successful, guess what? I'm gonna surround myself with successful people because I can pick up nuggets from them. Well, look, I'm taking notes.
I definitely agree with that. I remember Jay-Z was talking about, I want to hang around Warren Buffett, and he did. That was the type of people he put himself around.
You have to put those people in your circle.
Right. I sat here with no degree. You know what I'm saying? I was in my early 30s, and I said, I'm going to go back to school. Because I dropped out of school so many times. I tried college. I kept dropping out, right? I said, I need to get a mentor. Somebody talked to me. They were like, you need to get a mentor, right? So I said, I need to get a mentor. I went in to college. I had to retake all these classes that 18-year-olds were in. Each professor was probably my age. Some were a little bit older and some was a little bit younger. All right. They were in their 30s. Some of them was in their 40s. I started talking to every professor that sounded like they knew what they were talking about that were in my profession. I ran through that psychology, social work field, all those different things, men, women, and I talked to everybody I could. I started getting numbers. People probably thought I was in that joint trying to talk to their husband and wives. I don't know. They probably thought like that dude crazy because I got everybody's number. I called everybody, and I stayed in touch with these people. And guess what? One of the people who really influenced a lot is a guy that used to work with me and you. He didn't do much. He didn't do much at the mental health center, but he's a professor at A&M. And I said, well, let me get your number because I need to go to grad school. He said, well, I'm going to tell you what to do because I had started putting myself around professionals and people with licenses, people who actually were doctors. I have people who are doctors I can call right now for the type of problems that I might have in the field, right? I can run it by a doctor of social work, a doctor of psychology. You know what I'm saying? I can run it by you who has a license. You're a licensed practitioner. I know what I did. It sounded crazy to me at first, but it paid off. By going to meet with professionals, I'm now a professional.
Yeah.
When people ask me for my number and say they want professional advice, I said that's what I did. That's how I got here.
Yeah, most definitely.
So if I would have just stayed around the same people that I was friends with, who were all high school dropouts, college dropouts, those type of people, I would have stayed with that same information that didn't get them anywhere.
Exactly. I mean, it ultimately, something I watched today on Instagram, Kevin Gates was talking about, being alone and being by yourself. He was like, that is when he has his biggest epiphanies, when he stops and he sits down with himself and is not distracted by anything else. And right. You have to sit down and you have to recognize and have that conversation with yourself, not an actual, physical conversation with yourself, but an internal dialogue with yourself and contemplate, meditate on what it is that you individually want. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And start mapping that out. And right. So by mapping those things out, you recognize, okay, if I see myself playing an NBA in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, there's certain things that I'm gonna have to do. There's sacrifice I'm gonna have to make.
Right.
In order to shine, you got to be willing to grind. And so sometimes that means recognizing like the people that are around you, the people that are leading you, the people right. that are guiding you, they're guiding you into damnation and destruction. And so you got to kind of recognize for yourself, because everyone individually, I've learned in my time as a provider, you're never going to be able to tell somebody when enough is enough.
Right.
You have to let them reach that point on their own for them to understand when it's time to say, you know what, I had it. It is what it is.
Keep bumping their head. Look, they keep bumping their heads.
Because if you go in and you're telling them, hey, this is dysfunctional and this is chaotic, guess what? Their first reaction is to be defensive. Right. And so
that's human nature.
Again, it becomes one of those situations where ask people, what is it that you want? What are you trying to achieve? What are you hoping to gain? What is your end state? And by understanding what your end state is, you know what the things you're going to have to do in order to get to that point.
Self-assessment.
So you have to do that. That is the only way that, for me, that I feel that generational curses are going to be able to break. Right. By having those self-assessments and understanding that, I'm living dysfunctional as hell. The way I handle people is not okay. And why is it that I handle people like that? Because I've seen other people do it. I've seen my mom or I've seen my dad interact with people like that or handle people like that. And where did that get them?
No, look,
got them
exactly. Where did that get them?
Exactly.
You should be able to look back at a lot of your family members, a lot of the dysfunction that is dysfunction. You don't have to be a clinician to know it's dysfunctional, right? Like when I meet people who, live from paycheck to paycheck or live from food stamp to food stamp, right? That's crisis. You're living in a crisis. You can't handle your finances. I know people with jobs, all right, who live paycheck to paycheck with jobs who get paid more than myself and RJ. All right, 6-figure jobs, right? And live from paycheck to paycheck. There's some dysfunction going on there. You don't have to go to a financial advisor. All right, you don't have to do those seminars from what's my man, the one who always talking about finances and keeping your money. What's the white gentleman? Man, I forgot his name.
I know who you're talking about, but I see his stuff on YouTube all the time.
He does all them YouTube. You don't have to go to those seminars to know you're dysfunctional. You can go to his seminar to learn how to maybe get out of some of that dysfunction, but you don't have to do that because you should see the trend. Because if you're making a certain amount of money, which a lot of African Americans are, and we spend a lot of money on retail, a lot of money on material things, and we're in debt. Well, what's that reason? What's the function for that? And I have to talk to people all the time as a social worker. I said, did you grow up in scarcity? Did you grow up seeing your parents not being able to pay certain bills? Did you grow up sometimes not having enough food?
Yeah.
Right. So I did. I said, so right now you overdo it. All right, because you grew up in that scarcity. All right, you don't know how. It's just like somebody who starves himself. When they finally get to eat, they binge. Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I finally got some money and I'm spending it all. And you got to think it's an urge, right? At that point, it's become a maladaptive coping skill. At that point.
And the best way I can say it is, in order to have things that you've never had, you got to be willing to do things you've never done. So
right.
like we were saying about self-assessment, you got to recognize where you are in life, the things that you want to achieve for yourself, and the things that you hope to do, and the impact that you want to have on this life. And so, because you only have one life to live. And so by understanding what you want, understanding the things that you want, that you hope to achieve, and your goals, are you doing the things necessary to be able to achieve those things?
Achieve those goals, right.
Are you surrounding yourself with the people who are going to help you achieve those things? Or have you learned the lessons that you need to learn in order to achieve those things? Because a lot of things you are going to be blessed with through seeing other people go through them.
Right.
Other times, you, like you said for yourself, you have to go out there and seek the knowledge. If I want to be a better bodybuilder, guess what I'm gonna have to go do? I'm gonna have to go study people who were,
right.
who were great at bodybuilding. So, but the thing about it though is it starts at home, because again, most of us learn the things, that help shape who we are when we become adults at home from our environment. Right. Those factors, the nurturing that we receive from our parents or the people that raise us are the keystone things that help shape who we are as adults. And if you don't have someone actively shaping and molding you appropriately, they're setting you up for failure. And I mean, I've seen that happen too many times where, again, at 30 years old, you have no concept of what it means to be an adult. You have no concept of what it means to be a fully functional, successful adult. Because, what do you have to fall back on as experience? Nothing. Dysfunctionality, chaos. No different than having a successful and fruitful relationship. If you've never seen what that looks like, how can you then execute?
Right. There's no way to recreate what you haven't seen.
Yeah. The best thing that you can do is you can close your eyes and take a shot in the dark at it. But again, how successful are you going to be when you have nothing to model? And so that's where, things like financial literacy, working a job, being consistent, having a healthy relationship. If you, these are things that a lot of people take for granted because you think that, I'm really great at communicating, or I'm really great at this, or I'm really great at that. That's because you've had good people to model behavior after. But when you've never seen someone make it and be successful, you've never seen someone go and graduate from college, you think that that's something that's outside your wheelhouse to be able to achieve. When you see people that do something, people that you have firsthand, not second or third or fifth or sixth or vicarious experience with, you have firsthand knowledge of that. You're like, man, I can do that.
Same thing. That's that self-efficacy.
Yep.
It comes vicariously also, not just, what I'm saying. If I see somebody do something that I know, I say, you know what, I can go get mine too.
Yep. One of the things I admire my dad about is my dad started a nonprofit. And so like with his nonprofit, it's geared towards helping children who are underprivileged and just don't have the resources that other kids would have. So the thing about it though is like my dad is a shining example of where certain generational curses, where he broke certain generational curses that were on his life. The generational curse of undereducation, the generational curse of poverty and lack. My dad is like the living embodiment of get rich or die trying. But not only did he achieve his goals and the things that he had for himself, but then he goes back and he shows other people how to do those things too.
Do the same thing. That's right.
All of my siblings and I are as successful as we are because I had an example of what it was to achieve things, what it was to actually set my mind to things and follow through and be consistent, put forth the effort, be disciplined. And had I not had those things, I don't know where I would be in life right now.
Right.
And so that's where I can tell you that having a shining example and why it's imperative that as parents, that you are doing the best by your children. Because I'm telling you, most of the clients that I have and that I provide services to, on a consistent basis, a core root of their issues started at home. Started at home. Started at, the way that they spent, who they spent time with, who invested in them. Because if people aren't investing in you, you need to leave them alone.
Right.
Because again, if they're not investing in you, they're not adding and multiplying you in your life. They're dividing and subtracting out of it.
Look at the examples we gave. Those were people's parents who were taking away from them or adding negative things to them.
Yep, weighing them down.
Like I said, misinformation. Because like growing up in my household, my sister went to school. My mom graduated, got 2 degrees. My sister got 2 degrees. And when I didn't do those things and the plan was laid out for me, everybody said, man, what you doing? Why are you working construction? People challenge my thinking.
Yep.
If there's no one there to challenge your thinking, and I work construction. I had my electricians. I was an apprentice. I went to the union. I worked with the union. I had my apprentice license for 2 years. I did all those type of things. I had my CDL lights. I did all those jobs. But my mother and my sister consistently challenged my thought process.
Because they wanted you to be better.
They wanted me to be better. If there's no one there to challenge you, though, RJ, that's the thing with a lot of people. If no one challenges you, you're left to that same thought process, right? And you don't have anybody else to actually help you or try to change your mind. Because left to ourselves, to our own devices, we don't make the best decisions. Best decisions are made with multitude of counselors. You have to have other people who challenge your thinking. You know what I mean?
And who are there to help you be the best version of yourself.
Right.
Because again, everybody has, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Right.
But you have to kind of take everyone's opinion and look at, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a place of this person wants me to be the best version of myself? Or is it coming from a place of this person just talking just for the sake of talking?
Right.
Because again, if the advice or the opinion is not geared towards helping you be the best version of yourself, because there's a difference between someone giving you constructive criticism versus someone who's just being a hater. Someone who's being a hater will tell you that you're stupid, but not tell you how you're stupid. Whereas someone who's providing constructive criticism will tell you that your thinking is flawed, and this is why it's flawed. This is what we can do to correct that thinking.
To correct the flaw.
And so
they're not just criticizing you for no reason.
They're not tearing you down. They're investing in you because they want you to overcome yourself. Because for most of us, our worst enemy is ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because we as human beings, we're lazy. We're indulgent, we're decadent, and we choose to travel the path of least resistance. And like I said earlier, if you want to have things that you've never had, you got to be willing to do things you've never done. And so that means understanding.
Not too many people not too many want to do something hard. I've worked at a rehab for almost 4 years of my life in the professional field, right? Substance abuse. I let everybody know. I've seen more people come and go, more people die from the disease of addiction because recovery was hard.
Yep.
People quit all the time.
Yep.
And I tell you, if it was easier, there wouldn't be such things as recovery programs. If it was easy, everybody would just go get clean, right?
Yep.
People do not like doing things that are hard.
I mean, because it requires discipline. It requires discipline. It requires consistency. Yes. It becomes one of those situations of every single day. Like recovery is not just from addiction or from substance misuse. Recovery is from everything. From mental health, emotional health. Everything can be health. Everything can be recovery. You have to every single day wake up deciding to make good, conscious decisions. Every decision you make has to be a good one, because one bad decision can lead into another bad decision, dominoes into next thing you know, you broke up and you don't even know why.
Look, that's the generational curse right there, that domino effect.
Yep.
My grandfather did this one thing. Next thing you know, my father did it. Then I did it. Generational curses.
And so again, in order to break these cycles, because that's what a curse. Excuse me, that's what a curse ends up being. It ends up being a cycle, a never-ending cycle that feeds into the next person that jumps on the train. And at some point in time, we have to love each other enough to be able to say the bullshit's got to stop.
Right.
And in order for that to stop, we have to recognize that we don't have ourselves together. And by getting ourselves, we got to call out the dysfunction. We have to be on. We have to have those honest conversations with not just other people, but ourselves as well.
Right.
Because you can't check somebody else when you're living the crazy life as well. So
you over here living La Vida Loca.
Yeah, living La Vida Loca.
Me I'm crazy.
But you not doing no more better than I am.
Right.
So in order for us to break these cycles, we have to be willing to have those serious conversations and be willing to make good, serious choices, the difficult choices, the hard choices. Because by being able to do that is what will save the generations that are coming after us. Because for me, the way I was always taught was you want to leave the house in a better condition than when you found it.
Right.
So for me, I want to leave this world when I finally get called to the upper room, because I try my best to lead a good life, so I don't go to the hot place, hoping to go to the upper room. Right. When I finally get called to the upper room, I want to leave this world in a better state than when I received it. So that's why it's imperative that things that I see that are in my personal lane of traffic in regards to my family, being able to break some of those cycles and some of those chains, talking to my cousins or my nephews or whoever and say, hey, what you're doing right now, that's not going to do nothing for you later on down the road. In the long run, right. In the long run, that's going to be that's going to be another hurdle you got to overcome. So right now, we got to leave that alone because it's not going to help you be the best version of yourself. And, that's where it starts at. That's where it starts at in regards to seeing change occur is being willing to have those serious conversations and being willing to point out that these particular things or these particular people are getting in the way of the next generation of people being the best version of themselves.
Or just the behaviors that are being passed on. We talked about the violence. We talked about the overindulgence in sex and having children at an early age. Those things being a part of the household, being passed down. It's because you saw that somewhere. Yeah. It's okay for you to be sexually active at 13 and 14. I was. So it's okay if that's the decision that you're going to make. Because kids are going to be kids. Right. You'll end up having kids just like me. And some parents will even say it. You fast. You're going to get pregnant just like I did. But they'll say it, and they'll say it in a way that wasn't educational for the child. Yeah, they took it as a joke. You don't want to do that because I did. And look, I'm struggling with you. Yeah, there's a lot that I can't do.
I still remember to this day, my grandfather told my sister, baby, I love you, but you're going to be fat. He's like, you look at your mama, you look at your grandmama, look at your aunts. They all fat. You're going to be just like them. And that's terrible. Me and my sister joke about that now, but that was a generational curse, and he was pointing it out in his way of way of joking and stuff like that, and the Southern way of we just we show affection through food.
Yeah, we stress eat too. We stress eat. Especially down south, they stress eat. Oh, baby, it's all right. Eat this. Oh, because every day is stressful for a Black person anyway. So hey, like you said. We showing our love, man. Come over and I got some food over here. This gonna make you feel better.
Yeah. And so, he pointed that out, trying to be funny, but like his words were like, I look back on it now, I'm like, damn, he was right. Like a lot of the women in our family are overweight. Right. Like I definitely started looking at those things. And so, like my grandfather, I don't think he even graduated high school, but the thing was, every single one of his kids, guess what? They at least graduated high school. Now, not everybody went to college, but, my father went to college. My father made sure all of his kids went to college.
Hey.
You know, and then even now, you know, because he recognized for himself that I want better for myself. And in wanting better for myself, I want to have better for my children and for the children and for those and their children. And so on and so forth until the line finally ends. I want to make sure. About. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. What you just said is what I was talking about in the beginning about the scripture, right? So there's a scripture that fits this. It's Exodus 34:7, right? God says to Moses, right? He says, God says, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin, yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children's children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. That's what I was talking about when I said it's in scripture that God definitely visits those sins that are passed on to all those different, because they're going to keep going from generation to generation. He's going to keep revisiting and judging it.
Yep.
You get what I'm saying? And people don't realize that you're passing the same thing on again and again, and it's a sin. It is not something that's being passed on that's good. This is something negative that's being passed on, that dysfunction. Yep. People don't realize that. It's not something positive that's being passed on. How is somebody being morbidly obese or overweight because they're stress eating, because their life is full with all these crises, right? How's that going to be healthy? How's diabetes going to help them in the long run?
It's not.
You got to change certain things. You know what I mean? Change you must or die you will. That's
facts. True statement.
That's that recovery talk. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, because if basic principle of Darwinism, those who fail to adapt and evolve with their environment become extinct. And so it's one of those things where, you know, a mindset / paradigm shift has to occur if we hope to see our future generations flourish and be more successful than we've ever been. Because that should be the goal, is for the people coming after you to do better than you. Right. And because it shouldn't be where we struggled and then we want the people behind us to struggle. I struggle so you don't have to. But again, like I said, those are conversations that have to occur starting at home. So, you know, it's one of those things where, again, people have to have conversations with their kids. People have to have conversations with their loved ones, because that's where it starts at. Who are you more likely to listen to? Someone that is close to you or someone that's far from you?
Somebody from the street, right? Somebody from somewhere else.
So it has to. So we want to thank you guys for tuning into another episode. If you like what you heard, we would like for you to, you know, stay and participate in the conversations, join the tribe. And until then, we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, folks.